Welcome to Friends and Neighbors. I am one of your hosts, Sandra O'Neill.
Are you one of our hosts? Tell the truth, Sandra.
Just one of them.
Yeah.
I'm one of them.
All right, and I think I am
you another
too.
one?
Yes, I believe I am for about, what, 20 years
Yes.
now?
Well, you're the heartbeat of the show, my friend.
But you know who this sweet thing is over here.
And here we have another. But you are our guest co-host.
Yes.
We're so excited to have you
Thank
here.
you for having me here, ladies.
Yes,
it's
we're
been a
glad
pleasure
to
to
have
be
you
able to
here.
get to know you more and more each time I come.
Our silliness, yes, that's it.
Silliness, joy.
We'll welcome you into it.
Thank
Courtney.
you.
For better or for worse.
Wow. Richer and poor,
sickness
sickness and health. Yes.
Hey, didn't the first show of Friends and Neighbors start with a wedding gown? The very first one. Didn't you all dress up with wedding gowns?
No.
I guess it
Just like they did in Friends?
No, we didn't. We opened up with Kim and Donna, scared to death to look at just.
Well, I saw a picture of all y'all dressed up in wedding gowns, which I was like,
that was on down.
Oh, I love that.
That's hilarious.
Well, anyway, that reminded me when we said for better or for worse, and sickness and in health. But, you know, sickness and in health, you know, we're going to be talking about the big C word, cancer.
Ooh, yeah.
And, you know, I think about how many people's lives have been impacted, and it's such a blind, it's like a 180, right? That happens. Have you all been impacted? Family impacted, friends?
My best friend, who was the producer of Tammy Faye Baker's show many years back, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Then she passed away, and then Donna, co-host Donna, passed away.
And it was...
That's still too much.
It's very, very fresh.
Because I love Donna. I really love Donna a lot. And she passed away too. So, and I know you probably both have lost someone
you know,
too.
my grandmother, she passed away from breast cancer, and you know, it's one of those things. We just a little bit ago we had the Young Survivors Coalition, so this is something that happens to people not only when they're older, but when they're young, unexpected.
Right.
And so this is a great topic that it's hard to talk about, but it needs to be talked about.
It needs to be. It's more also the prevention of it, because you do get blindsided by it.
Right.
And you know, in my family, my mother-in-law has been affected by it as well. You know, and we want to make sure that she is cancer-free.
Yes, amen.
It becomes a lot. It is with you, and you constantly have to make sure. So it is very impactful.
And you need to learn the different signs.
Yes.
You need to learn what to look for, because some of it, like ovarian cancer, you don't know that. Sometimes they say too, when that's just about at the end of it. But there are little telltale signs that you can learn and know, and you need to learn to do self-examinations.
Yes.
And it's so much more than that too. You know, it's those little ins and outs. And I don't know, somebody like me and maybe a viewer out there, you don't want to deal with it. Like I want to switch. I'm like, I don't want to think about it.
Yes.
And it's because it's a reflex of being scared.
Right.
And I'm talking that about myself.
Absolutely.
I just don't want to.
I'll claim that too. I mean,
but it's one of those things. The more you know, right? That fear starts going away, because you're actually taking one step in front of the other to say, I'm going to be able to understand the signs.
And taking ownership of your health, right, in every capacity. So not just for things that we are aware of, but also for things that we aren't aware of. But when they do arise, if God forbid they do arise, we can say, you know what?
You know how to get started. Well, we are going to be talking with a guest that has a lot to say about this to get us educated. So we will take a short break, but we will be back right after that with Jenny Hrbacek. And welcome back to Friends and Neighbors. We are joined here by Nurse Jenny Hrbacek, and she is going to be here educating us to just peel away those fears that we have about the big C word,
Yes.
cancer. Thank you for joining us.
I'm so glad to be here.
Now, not only are you a nurse, but you are a cancer survivor.
Yes.
You also are an educator and a speaker and an advocate
Right.
for women and for people battling cancer,
Right.
because knowledge is power.
Well, it is, and to be honest, when I worked as a nurse in the hospital, I was in neonatal. So
wow.
I wanted to do happy nursing. I got the new babies.
Right,
I didn't want to
right.
do anything with disease.
Yes.
So that's, I wanted to be a nurse, but I didn't want to get into any of the scary parts. And then in 2009, when I got that cancer diagnosis, my world was just rocked.
Well, Nurse Jenny, how did you know? A lump?
Do you know?
What?
It's the strangest thing, and this is the reason behind this book is what I discovered when I got that diagnosis. Because, every year we go to our OBGYN checkups, they check your lab work. Everything was fine on me. My circulating, my CBC was fine, my liver enzymes were fine, my cholesterol was fine, my blood sugar was fine. I was perfectly healthy. I go every year, and from one year to the next, all of a sudden, they say they think they feel maybe a cyst, and it turned out not to be a cyst. It turned out to be a 1.9 centimeter tumor that was very deep in the breast. And I thought, well, God, I was at Jazzercise last week. I look good. I feel good. But all of a sudden, I needed surgery, radical surgery they were recommending, and I needed potentially chemotherapy and radiation. And I cannot, unless you've personally been through it, the fear that just comes over you, because
Can't imagine.
we have conditioned women in this country, and even not just with breast cancer, but with any kind of cancer, we've conditioned people to think that it's this big scary thing, and it's because of the way we handle it. And so I want to tell y'all today how we have had the wrong idea, the wrong approach. Cancer does not have to be a death sentence. It doesn't have to elicit that fear, because we have a lot of control.
And Nurse Jenny, this is why you wrote Cancer Free, Are You Sure?
Yes.
And that's powerful. It's your go-to guide for cancer testing.
Right, and therapies, and it connects you with integrative practitioners around the country. So when I will tell you this, so when I went to the appointment, from getting the word that I had cancer, they send you to an oncologist, and all of a sudden I'm picturing a chart with my name on the side of it. And it was horrible. I can't tell you, I cried, and I'm on the internet and I'm Googling, I'm searching for, how can this be?
And that
What
could be
do I
Googling
do?
can be scary in itself.
Oh my gosh, you can
don't have to
diaggnose
find
yourself with
it.
something that you don't even have when you start Googling, right?
It was the worst year of my life. It was so traumatic. But when I went in to ask the oncologist, I said, well, so I had this cancer, and this was still stage 1 size. Anything below 2 centimeters is considered stage 1. And I said to him, well, how long have I had this? And I expected him to say that that I got it like in the last year. Do you know what he said? He said, you've had this 7 to 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
7 to 10
And so
years?
that started my mind going, and the wheels turning, and me thinking, wait a minute, we can put men on the moon. We can text message someone in Hawaii. I'm here in Texas.
Yes.
But we can't find cancer until you've had it for 7 to 10 years. And I require chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation. I don't understand why we are letting this become so big. So I started attending medical conferences. I just would go and I'd volunteer so I could get in where the doctors were. I'd volunteer to hold the door, to check the badges, whatever I needed to do. And I learned that it's not true. We don't have to, ladies, we do not have to wait for the lump or bump. We do not have to wait for the lump or bump. We
So
can
what do
find
we
cancer.
do? How do we do that, knowing that that's all we
Sure.
know?
We can find cancer years before you would ever have a lump or bump, when you don't even qualify for chemosurgery or radiation. Now all of a sudden, cancer becomes something that your body can heal from. You didn't catch cancer. Your cells turned into a cancer cell. And I'm going to show you.
us.
I can show you with my little tennis
we
ball.
love it.
Yes.
I'm such a visual person.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we
so, and we have to, when we think about cancer, we need to connect with our creator. We need to understand that maybe there's things we're doing that are causing this, and that our body was created to heal. Have you ever seen like a lizard, the tail gets chopped off and it regenerates
Yes.
that tail? The same thing with the starfish. We get a new liver every 6 months. Our bodies were created to heal. But we live in a very, very toxic world. So let's talk about this.
Yes.
So these are my little tennis balls. These little pins, this is a healthy cell, okay? These little pins represent the insulin receptors. So insulin is a hormone that's put up by your pancreas. So when you eat pasta or potato or sugar or even broccoli breaks down to sugar, it's gonna go, the insulin's gonna attach to these receptors and open the little door so the sugar can get into the cell to produce the energy in the little mitochondria. That's what we call our little cell engines if you go back to biology class. And that was a long time ago, ladies.
Yes, I was about to say.
Anyway, so this is a healthy cell. I just put 10 pins in here, for example. This is a cancer cell. A cancer cell has 15 to 16 to 17 times the number of insulin receptors. So when you hear that thing that says, don't eat sugar, sugar feeds cancer, the rationale for that is because the engine in the cancer cells can no longer ferment, can no longer take the good fats and the nutrition from our food, and it's broken. It's broken, so it has to have a lot of sugar to produce a little bit of energy. So all of a sudden, we've got all these insulin receptors. So the body's producing more insulin. The body's producing,
Is that insulin
which makes
resistance?
more estrogen comes up. So it's kind of it's a soup for a mess. So once you start producing all these insulin receptors, that's caused by eating a lot of sugar and a lot of bad fats. This membrane gets rigid and the good nutrients can't get in. So the body will just plump on a bunch of insulin receptors so the sugar can get in.
Yes.
And which makes for women with breast cancer, it makes their estrogen levels go up. And so many, 80 to 90% of breast cancers are estrogen, progesterone driven. And, and that's the same thing, even men are, prostate cancer, a lot of those are hormone driven, ovarian, there's different cancers that are hormone driven.
So nutrition is a key component.
I'm telling you, in Genesis, when God said, I made the seed and I gave it to you, to eat it for life, we are eating a lot of processed foods and
a lot of carbs, too many things that are dead, that are cooked because when you cook something, you kill the enzymes in it. And if you lay an apple or a banana on that table, it's going to turn brown, right? It's going to start digesting itself.
Right.
But if you cook it, you can lay that apple there, for a week, and it's not going to turn brown and digest itself because you've killed the enzymes in it that your body needs to pull those nutrients out of it.
So what superfoods are foods that just are great for your?
You know what? There's so many.
Yes.
All the berries are great.
And the raw food.
I try and eat I try and eat half of my food raw throughout the day. Do you know, I talk to people and I'll say, so tell me how much raw food you ate. It might be only the lettuce and tomato they got on their burger. Seriously, because they're cooking their oatmeal, they're putting brown sugar and granola on it. They're having maybe a burger and sweet potato fries for lunch. So, and a lot of burgers have very little lettuce and tomato.
Right.
And for dinner they're having some lasagna, and some people will get a salad, and then the salad's made with the hydrogenated canola oil or something that again clogs up this membrane. So we talk about, my book is kind of about testing because I tell people we are a testing society.
Right.
Yes.
We go for our mammograms, we go for our PSA counts, we go for our colonoscopies, we go for all these tests, but there are tests that will find cancer years before you would ever require surgery or chemotherapy or radiation. And then we take that big cancer monster and we make it into something that's manageable. Like diabetes now. Diabetes is no longer a death sentence. If you can actually correct it.
With diet, can't you? And exercise.
Yes, you can get off the insulin.
Is that insulin resistance, though? Is that close? Does insulin resistance go into diabetes?
Yes.
From sugar? Is that
right? It's all from it's all diet.
Wow.
It's diet driven. Unless you have, the non-insulin where your pancreas just doesn't make insulin at all. Most people can correct it.
Okay. So when you go into you talked about the testing. Where can people get these realistic?
Okay. So listen. So this is really interesting. The science has showed that any tumor over 1 to 2 millimeters, which if you pulled out a ballpoint pen and you put a little dot on a piece of paper, has blood perfusion. Because I hear people say, my tumor was completely encapsulated. I'm thinking, how can that be? That tumor has to have sugar, it has to have nutrients, it has to, byproducts of cellular metabolism are being pumped out of it. It has to have some connection with your body. Well, at 1 to 2 millimeters, that tumor's already getting a little vascular. It's called angiogenesis. It's a big word. It just means it's forming a little network to get nutrients. So because I really believe cancer is a survival mechanism. So those cells and DNA fragments get swept away into the bloodstream really early in the disease process. But if you find that really early, then you don't qualify for any of these therapies, and the doctors don't really know what to do with you. To be honest, they don't know what to do with you.
Okay.
But to me, the Bible is our guide.
Yes.
And it says what we were to do. And if it's processed, we've got to cut those foods out.
Same for grains, breads, all those
I know
spices.
so many people that have been a day from death or on hospice and have turned their whole disease process around. And the thing that gets me is we've allowed it to become something so fearful.
Yes.
And
yes.
and people don't even want to talk about it. They don't want to know, but 38% of Americans will get cancer at some point in their life. And so it's kind of a plague. It's like this silent plague that's on our society
It's
that no
true.
one's talking about.
It's true.
And people are losing their mothers or fathers or aunts. And you know what I thought when they told me that I'd had it for 7 to 10 years? I said, oh my gosh, I just wasted 7 to 10 years of possible intervention.
I love the way
Oh,
you're
that's
thinking,
right.
the preventative point while
Right.
sitting there and waiting. What are the misconceptions of these testings?
Right, right. Well, you know, people want to say that it's not possible to find cancer, but I will tell you, I had the privilege of meeting Dr. Kobayashi, Tumasu Kobayashi from Japan. For the last 4 to 5 decades, he has been testing a blood test for all of his patients. He's done over 10,000, a simple blood test, and he has a cancer scale 1 through 5. So he has a stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In our country, we have stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, when you get to Dr. Kobayashi's stage 5, you were just appearing as a stage 1 cancer in the United States.
Really?
Wow.
So his
He's
patients
already well
his
ahead.
patients never.
right.
And this is and he's written papers and the data is out there.
So we can do this here.
Absolutely.
How much does it cost?
Well, there's a multitude of tests depending on what you want to do, depending on
What about
how
your
much
DNA?
money you
Well,
have.
why isn't it being done here?
Yeah, that's a good
I think because our healthcare system is based on you get a code for your insurance code, you know, whatever. If you don't have a problem, there's no solution.
Yes.
You know, you go to the doctor. We used to go to the doctor and we'd get a prescription or whatever, and we'd be well in a week or two. When we go to the doctor now, what happens? You're on some prescription for life. You're on high blood pressure medicine. You're on a statin drug. You're on something for life. No one ever really gets well, and we've created a society of people with chronic conditions.
Dependency.
So I tell people, you know, these are things you can do. You can ask your doctor for this test or this test or this test, and if your doctor won't order it, then go on my website or go on my book. I tell you how to connect with functional integrated physicians, and we've got to turn this back around to staying well
Yes.
and stop reacting once we get a really big, scary problem.
Right.
Are you saying don't cover up the problem with the medicines, but use alternative measures all your life to prevent these
Well, that's
kind
what
of
we
things?
need to do. But with that said, people are very hard-headed.
Amen. Amen. You
Yeah,
got
I mean,
that
even
right,
me.
yeah.
I love ice cream. That's what got me, and I won't even say the brand of the candy bar. But you know those little bitty ones? You could get like 10 in a pack.
Yes.
I used to hide them in the kitchen. I would have one every day. And my husband, I would hide them because he would eat he would eat like 4 of them.
One
Well, this
every
is-
day.
these
Good for you. That's
he's like-
self-control. I'm like,
He's like, these little things, this is like 4. This 4 makes 1 candy bar. I can have 4 of those.
my gosh.
You know, but I didn't know any better. And
Right.
our society is, look at the disease.
Oh, yeah. It's out of control.
When I go to church, half the older people have little walkers, or they're going down up the stairs one foot at a time. It's it's arthritis, it's everything. And
It is
all
absolutely.
fixable. So since people like tests, I thought, okay, well, I will do the research and I'll find the tests that you can get that will find cancer years before you have a lump or bump. And like there's a test called the early CDT lung test. Because 80% of lung cancer is found at the late stages, which is, usually people don't survive that.
yeah. Right.
Well, this test will find it 3 to 4 years before you would even have a tumor show
Praise
up on
God.
on a
That's
scan.
wonderful.
And the thing is, how do you even get a cancer test from your regular doctor? Because it's a PET scan or it's a
Yes.
biopsy.
Yes.
Right.
Your insurance is not going to approve a PET scan
Right.
unless you have some really serious reason, and if you don't let a tumor grow big enough for it to show up on a PET scan, they can't stick a needle in in it. So the reality is cancer, we have allowed it to become something that it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, the
Have you
monster.
found-
And that's what the Lord has just downloaded in me. And
Yes.
He's put me in the right places at the right time. I used to be so shy. In fact, my book launch was last week, and this gal that I went to nursing school with saw me on Facebook, and she says, "Oh my gosh, Jenny, you used to be so shy. Do you remember that you passed out the first day of clinical?" I did.
You've come a long way.
We were doing an upper GI and a colonoscopy, and I remember it like nothing. I was leaning over, I was holding this piece in this woman's mouth. They were sticking this garden hose
Oh,
down
that
her
would've
tube.
been it for me.
I thought there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
And I guess my legs were tight, and she was a big woman, and I was having to really hold that piece in her mouth. And I remember my friend said, the doctor said, "Why aren't you holding that in? Where'd your friend go?" And he goes, "Well, she's on the floor."
Oh my goodness,
gosh.
Jenny, I really feel God has called you for a time such as this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really do, with just what your comment that said there has to be a better way.
Yes.
And just to have that thought process and try and do something about attacking the fear and the scary C word and saying, no, it doesn't need to be this scary.
No, it
now, we're
doesn't.
going to take a quick commercial break,
Okay.
but we will be back with Nurse Jenny, and we're going to talk about more steps that you can take to try to combat that fear. You know what? I'm feeling a little less scared.
Yes.
We will be right back.
Man.
Welcome back to Friends and Neighbors, and we're still having a wonderful conversation, a very knowledgeable conversation with Nurse Jenny.
Yes, and there's one thing that we wanted to get right into. There's a misconception of reoccurrence when it comes to cancer.
Right,
Can you
right.
kind of give us some clarification when it comes
Okay, so I was told I was cancer-free after I did my 6 surgeries and my chemotherapy.
Wow.
And so I thought, well, I'm going to go to a support group, because that's what you do, right? You go to a breast cancer support group. So I went to a breast cancer support group, and it happened to be the inaugural meeting of this group. So it was a really large group, about 50 ladies and a couple of men were there. And everyone went around and introduced themselves, and they were telling they had estrogen, progesterone, driven cancer, that the size was 1.5 or 2.2 centimeters or whatever, and they said what they did. And the scary thing was, over half of the ladies had no hair. They were wearing wigs. They were pinked out with rhinestones, and they had experienced sometime 2 and 3 and 4 recurrences of the disease.
That was my friend.
And they were all told that they were cancer-free. And I was told I was cancer-free. So I sat there and I thought, wow, do I have a target on my back? I literally pictured a bullseye on and I actually looked over my shoulder and I thought, this is not supportive. I think I need to get out of here. But I helped get the group together. Oh, so you're like, once I got them to stop serving the pasta, because I had to have, it was at a hospital, I had to have a talk with the dietitian. And I thought, what is going on here? So the reality is, that's the name of my book, Cancer Free, Are You Sure? Because it really started with, then once you've had cancer, you live with this the rest of your life. You're in constant surveillance mode. But the way they're surveilling is with your normal cancer labs they do at the hospital, which have never been elevated on me, even when I had the tumor. And people will be told they have no tumor on a PET scan. But remember we talked about those little cells that are in the bloodstream?
Yes.
There are stem cells, which are only like 2 to 3% of the total volume of cells in your body that are cancerous. Very small population, but those are the cells that hold the DNA, and they can start reproducing. So we can test for those, but they won't test for those until they wait for you to have now we see this is not looking good, and then they'll, because at one time my tumor markers started rising, and it really scared me, and I told the doctor, I said, so what are we going to do? She goes, well, we're going to check your circulating tumor cell count. And I said, what is that? Here I've been through all this. Nobody mentioned this word. I'm like, y'all are holding back
Well,
on
if
me.
a nurse is asking that question,
Because you don't know.
They all know there are these circulating tumor cells, but the test that's FDA approved in the U.S. will not find them until it has already metastasized to another organ.
That's ridiculous.
Well, that is ridiculous. Who wants a positive on that test?
Yes.
So, man, I started getting in the sauna. I changed changed my diet. I started taking a bunch of nutrients with the tests that I talk about in the book that will tell you which nutritional substances that God created, that He put here on the earth that we're not eating. And I always tell people, eat the seeds in your apple.
Yes.
Because there are anti-cancer substances in that seed in the apple. Throw the whole apple. Take the stem off, put the whole
And
apple
eat
in
the
your
seed.
smoothie.
Really?
The seed.
Okay, I'll be doing that.
Yeah,
Yes.
arsenic is in there. It's a little bit, and it kills cancer cells. But we're not eating the parsley on our plate. You know, we're eating all the
Right,
other
it's
stuff.
just a garnish.
Right, it's not a garnish. You should eat it. You should eat it. You should eat it.
But what about, because I know we don't have long, what about things we put on our body?
It's even in, right.
Our makeup,
You know what I use?
creams, our
I use
hair.
a lot of coconut oil.
I do too.
I have these little
too, every
packages
day.
that they sell, and I travel, like I brought one with me this morning. You can do
yes.
oil pulling, put like 2 tablespoons of oil in your mouth, and the first
called
couple of
oil
times,
pulling.
Well,
it's
it
called
helps
oil.
with tooth decay.
Yes, and it makes your,
Well,
it whitens your teeth.
I just hate that we have to stop talking
Yeah.
and wrap
We don't.
this.
Surely.
I know, it's all gone, but go get her book. Go get her back. You'll need to come back. We need to have you back to talk
Yeah.
more
Sure,
in
I'd love
depth.
to.
But I hope you have been educated about the C word. It's really not that scary, y'all. We can do something about it. We can
Yes.
turn it around, and I'm thankful for Nurse Jenny that she's
Amen.
been here for a time such as this.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Friends and Neighbors.